Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com, and like every Thursday afternoon, it's around 3 o'clock Eastern time where I am. I believe it's what time is noon Eastern? Or
One,
noon
one,
Pacific?
one mountain time.
1 Mountain Time, where Doug is
Yes.
in the Phoenix, Arizona area.
This
And
time of year, just so
yeah,
we know, because
yeah,
we go to once March through the first part of November, we're actually on then Pacific time, even though it's still called Mount. Everybody else we're always on Standard Time,
yeah.
and then most of the rest of the world goes back and forth between Standard and Daylight Savings. So
Yeah.
that's what it really is.
Just let me know what time it is in your neck of the woods. How's that sound?
Let's go.
Make
Let's
it
go with
easy.
1 o'clock right now.
All right, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, and
Mountain time.
it's 3 o'clock Eastern Time, and we're going to be covering 2 NBA games today. By the way, that's Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. I didn't get a chance.
Who's from Milwaukee, which was Central Time. Right. Thought I'd throw that in.
All right, let's stop the video and start all over again. I don't even know what day it is. They all blend in together when you work 24/7, 7 days a week, as I know you could relate to. Anyway, yes. Doug's going to be covering the Milwaukee at Indiana game on Friday, and I'm going to be looking at the Memphis and Minnesota game on Friday. So before we get going, though, Doug, how you been doing of late? And what's been going on?
Continue to do well, Ross. I mean, it's this week hasn't been as good as what it's been, but it still continues to do well. 46-31 the last 18 days. So
wow.
Making progress on that. I think that's like $3,600 plus a profit on that one. So that's been good. And the college basketball has picked up a little bit since last Saturday. 6 out of the last 8 had a Big East Bash sweep last night on the 2 games that were on TV on FS1. So that was nice. Xavier, especially with the outright upset of Connecticut. So that was a good one. And so that's good.
I'm assuming you had Creighton as well.
No, the other game that was on was Providence.
Okay.
Providence destroyed Butler. Yeah, so that was the other one there. And then let's see here. NBA, not as good the last couple of days. A little bit of a speed bump on that one, but looking to just get that turned around starting actually tonight with the game that I have. And then also NHL still rolling right along, 15-7. In the NHL of late, which is part of a 48-33 run in hockey. So
nice.
Those are all good. And hey, we got NFL 10-3 on best bets. So
absolutely
last 9 weeks. So good. Yeah. Yep. How about yourself?
Nothing you're saying surprises me, Doug, for whatever reason, because I'm used to you having winning streaks. Anyway, I'm doing pretty well, buddy. I mean, I told you on Monday when we spoke and we did our show here, that I had a horrible weekend. I went 3-10, but and then we got off air and you said, yeah, Ross, but you know yourself, you'll bounce right back and get it right back. Well, lo and behold, again, you're prophetic, because since Monday I've gone 7-0. So
perfect.
3-0.
Literally perfect.
Yeah. I had Creighton last night. I had a couple college basketball totals that won. My college basketball totals are now 20-8 with my last 28. Let me go through these real quick, Doug.
Okay.
Again, since Monday, 7-0 in all sports. NBA 7-3 the last 10. College basketball 21-12 the last 33, good for 64%. Basketball totals, NBA and college basketball combined totals 31-15. That's good for 68%. And since last year's national championship game, 16-5 on college basketball totals. And then if you go back a little further, it pans out to 20-8 in my last 28. And then all sports since December 27th, 47-32, shade under 60%. And dime bettors during that course of time have made $11,610. So going good for both of us. So let's keep it rolling. I hit both of my free picks yesterday on this channel. And we're going to set out to do the same today with me and Doug. And Doug, any other topic in the world of sports betting you want to touch upon?
Yeah, Ross, we we haven't. I don't think we've done a this season. Maybe we did, but I don't recall doing an NBA video. So this is our first one time to talk about that. And over the last several years, there's been a lot of discussion about, from a betting standpoint, about players sitting, when they're announced, how it's announced, and then the NBA, since they took up the, partnering with websites with gambling and stuff like that, that they would be more transparent and all this and all that. Well, maybe that's what the NBA's motive is, but it's certainly not the motive of the coaches. And we see continually, day after day, you can go through the injury reports literally at any time of day, and you make a bet, okay, based on what you know at the time, and then something completely changes, okay? And so, for example, I know, you have some more flexibility in terms of when you release some of your plays at some of the sites. I know not all of them, but some of them.
Picks and parlays, they want them in by 1 Eastern. Everybody else gives me flexibility, but you don't want, again, I don't mean to cut off and steal your thunder, Doug, but real quickly, everybody else gives me flexibility, but as we both know, you don't want to put up picks at 5:00 when the game starts at 7. So you have to do it in somewhat of a timely manner. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah. And so it docks for the NBA, it's 12:30 p.m. Okay, Eastern time for that. And so, you make your selections, and then literally for me, before I send it out, I check the injury report one last time just to be sure, make sure the lines haven't moved. And if you're good to go, you're good to go. Well, the most recent example of something completely different was Wednesday. The Denver Nuggets played the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay. The line was 7 or 7.5 favored by Milwaukee. The night before, Denver, both Murray and Jokic had come back to play from injury. So the presumption is if they were healthy enough, they'd come back, they'd play, the next night and in Milwaukee. Well, guess what? Both of them were yanked. Okay. I don't know what time they were yanked. I just happened to see though later on that the point spread was 13 for Milwaukee.
Wow.
And then so if you were lucky enough to have it beforehand, well, you ended up covering the spread by either a half or a single point if you had Milwaukee. However, the other side, if you got it afterwards, you were screwed. Okay, as it turns out, and this just continues to go on, and it's it's on Twitter a lot. It's on a lot of the different betting sites. It's just a cause of frustration, and I don't know what the answer is either, Ross. But it's just an uncomfortable feeling making picks on a daily basis, literally not exactly sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Doug's referring to specifically the NBA, folks. It doesn't apply to college basketball or the NHL. The bottom line is, here's the thing, folks. For us to put in our big bets that we put in personally, we have the luxury of waiting to the last hour or two. But when it comes to posting on other sites, even our own, and with any possibility of making sales on that particular game, you have to post it early enough. And that's what Doug's frustration lies, and mine as well, is that in the NBA, they're not being as transparent as they should be. There's been last minute lineup changes because of availability, especially in that specific instance that he had touched upon with Denver. You're talking about their two best players. Right. So, and the line jumping 6 points, that's a huge difference. So now if we waited, to put our own bets in, we're going to be probably not wagering on the favorite in that instance. So having said that, that's exactly, I don't know how you feel right now or what you're doing right now specifically, but myself, I've cut back on the NBA quite considerably compared to years past. Now, some of that, Doug, has to do with I've been winning and winning pretty good in college basketball. That's part of it. The other part is it's never an exact science, but at least in college basketball, these kids are playing 2, maybe 3 times a week, and 3 times a week at this time of year is a lot. So I would say on average about 2.5 times a week. With that being said, there's no veteran rest days. When somebody is injured, you pretty much know. Look, my old thing is if it's probable, they're going to play. If it's questionable, they're probable. And if it's they're out kind of thing.
Right,
So
right.
what I'm trying to say is it's a little more assuring when it comes to who's going to be available in a college basketball game as opposed to the NBA, which, again, as long as they play 82 games, and now that they got these athletic trainers involved that actually monitor rest and how much rest is needed for each individual player and how they test, you never know who's going to play and not play. So, I mean, the old days, it used to be just Popovic from San Antonio that would drive everybody nuts because he'd decide 1 hour before game time, Tim Duncan and the rest of the supporting cast wasn't going to play. Right. But now it applies to just about every team. I can't say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, you may have noticed something different, but I can't come right out and say definitively right now that there's one coach that's been consistent, in terms of the availability that's shown in the morning and who he plays at night.
Yeah, I mean, usually the only teams that has anything to do with that are the younger teams.
Yeah.
Okay. And or the teams that aren't very good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the teams that are better, you know, I mean, you get this on a continual basis. I mean, we've seen, you know, Golden State, you know, I mean, literally just give games away, you know, and that's the frustrating part, you know, is that, yeah, I know they're all there to win a championship, or there's a, you know, half dozen teams that are there to win a championship and all this and all that. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, you still play a full schedule and people are still paying full price to go to those games. So kind of a rough deal, you know, for in a lot of ways for a lot of people with what the NBA does. And I don't know what the solution is, but you know, in many ways it doesn't work. And it has nothing to do, quite honestly, I want to qualify this, with winning and losing. Okay. Yeah. It's just, you know, you're going to win some of those games, you're going to lose some of those games. What you just don't like is the uncertainty, not like anything in life. You don't like uncertainty. You know, you like to know what can come. Anything can happen, but you like to have the best idea what's coming.
Yeah. And like I said, with college basketball and the players' availability being so transparent, and you don't get players that rest because it's their third game in 7 days. Right. I mean, these kids playing the NCAA tournament and they'll play for conference championships, conference tournaments, I should say. And some of them are playing 4 games in 4 days. I mean, it's a moot point. The bottom line is that anytime there's uncertainty, it makes it for a very uncomfortable situation when you're trying to make an educated play that puts you and your clients in the best position to win. And that's exactly why I've limited my NBA picks as compared to my college basketball picks. I would say that I probably made, out of the 100, if I made 100 basketball picks, 80 of them have been in college basketball. Okay. I mean, I'm being hypothetical here, but I don't think I'm far off in that regard. Anyway, let's get to our free picks for today, Doug, unless you want to touch upon anything else.
No, I think we're good to go. And hey, let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. We were just talking about them. Let's go talk about them some more. And the Bucks are you know, they're in a little bit of I don't know if it's a funk or whatever. You know, they're not doing anything great. The last in the last dozen games, they've won 2 and they've lost either 1 or 2. Okay, after winning 2. So, and the last group was against the Double D's, Detroit and Denver. Now the Bucks are just 12-12 on the road with a mediocre 9-12-3 ATS record, and they've been outscored by 3.8 points per game. Yet they're an 8-point favorite, is what I'm showing. Ross, 7.5 as well at Naptown. And not everybody knows what Naptown is, but that's Indianapolis. That's I can tell you what that's about, but nobody cares.
Doug's a Midwestern boy, by the way, folks.
Yes. And this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Indiana Pacers. Okay, but however, on January the 8th, they were 22-15 in the top 6 in the Eastern Conference. This young team plays hard nightly, and what they've lacked in experience and defensive cohesiveness, they made up in hustle and three-point shooting and accuracy. Now, as it turns out, to borrow from an old term that Ross and I are familiar with, referring to Reggie Jackson back in his days with the Yankees, Tyrese Halliburton is the straw that stirs the drink, okay, for the Indiana Pacers. He leads the team in scoring and assists. Now, this former Sacramento King, who was part of the trade between Sacramento and Indiana, he's still only 22 years old, but he got hurt on January the 8th against New York Knicks. And including that game since then, the Pacers are 1-8 straight up and 2-7 against the spread. Now, Milwaukee, Ross, has beaten Indiana 9 straight times, covering 6 of them. Halliburton or not, the Pacers have to be absolutely sick of losing to Giannis and company in this one. So though the Bucks are actually a much improved 3-point defensive team this year compared to even their championship year, okay, and stuff, they're still only 1-8 on the road this season against 3-point shooting teams that are making 36% or higher. So I'm going to say the Bucks still win the game and extend their win streak, but it's going to be by 5 points or less. And so I'm going to say the Pacers keep pace in a narrow loss against the Milwaukee Bucks. So take the +8.
A play on words. The Pacers keep pace with no pun intended. And yeah, he's going to take the Indiana Pacers +8 against the Milwaukee Bucks. And, it doesn't shock me that they have trouble. I guess when you're taking an underdog and you said they're a little bit more improved defending the 3 as opposed to last year or the year before, the great equalizer we always say is making the ability to knock down 3-point shots. I know Halliburton's a really good 3-point shooter, so that can't help in that regard. But having said that, it's a divisional game, folks. And if it were all that easy and you could just say Milwaukee's so much better of a team, you're right. They are. On paper, they are. At the end of the year, they will be. Who's going to make a deeper run in the playoffs? Well, Indiana probably won't be there. Milwaukee, they'll be a legitimate contender again in the NBA playoffs. So Doug does like the Indiana Pacers +8 against Milwaukee. And I'm going to take a look at by the way, folks, you can find Doug's picks, his premium paid selections at DocSports.com. You heard what his records are, his recent streaks. You want to take advantage of that you spend a little bit of money to make a lot with Doug over at DocSports.com. I'm going to look at the Memphis and Minnesota game. Right now, Memphis is a 3.5-point road favorite. So this is very intriguing, and it caught my eye because when you stop and think about things, it looks simple. And you know what it is in sports betting. When it looks simple, it looks easy, or it looks obvious, it's rarely the case. Minnesota has won 7 of their last 8 at home. Their only loss in that sequence was by 1 to Utah. While this will be the finale of a 5-game and 8-day road trip for Memphis, and they've gone 0-4 in the first 4 games on this trip, but 3 of those losses have came by 2 points or fewer. And prior to going on this recent road trip, the Grizzlies had been on an 11-game win streak. So it's not like they turned into a bad team overnight. They've lost some pretty close decisions. And despite the recent results, you're looking at Memphis as a road favorite here against a team that's won 7 of their last 8 at home. You're looking at Memphis as a road favorite, despite the fact they've gone 0-4 straight up and 1-3 ATS in their first 4 games on this road trip. And I can't emphasize enough that in sports betting, when it looks obvious and it looks easy, it usually isn't. And I'm not saying all the time to go with the contrarian approach, but I'm certainly going to exercise that option right here. I think the Memphis Grizzlies come up big in this spot, and I'm going with Memphis -3.5 over Minnesota. And by the way, since last year, when Memphis is coming off back-to-back straight-up losses and they're a favorite, they've gone 11-0 straight up and 10-1 against the spread in those games, winning by 17.6 points per game. Just thought I'd add that in, Doug. Memphis -3.5 over Minnesota, and Doug Upstone, he likes the Indiana Pacers to keep pace with the Milwaukee Brewers. It's too early for that yet. The Milwaukee Bucks. And so there you go, folks. We're looking at a 2-0 on the free plays. Don't forget, you can find me at rbwins.com. That's where my premium pay selections are post it. And instead of complaining on occasion when we lose a free play, we'll give you the right to complain if you spend money and you don't make money with us. As a matter of fact, we'll take care of you. So in any event, Doug, any final words?
Yeah, just that Memphis Minnesota line is very interesting, and I was curious to see which way you would go with that, because you can make an argument kind of either way,
Absolutely.
From that perspective. But that angle that you have, I mean, we're talking about that. I'm assuming it's probably over the last few years, and with that being the case, you also then have a situation where you have the same core of players that have been there. Some people say, oh, trends, they're this or that, they're misleading, they're longer trends and this and that. But that's not the case with Memphis. That, these are the same basic group of players with the same coach.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's everything.
And that goes back it goes back to the beginning of last season, Doug.
Oh, geez. Well, okay. That's hardly any time at all then from that standpoint. So I definitely like Memphis with what you're saying. And that trend is super strong on that one.
Yeah. And we've discussed this before. Team trends don't mean a hell of a lot when they go back 5 and 10 years. Right. One team might have the other team's number, but I look at recent trends and I don't solely rely on those, but right. I put more emphasis on team trends that are recent. And I don't like to go back any more than the previous 2 seasons. In this particular instance, it goes back 1 year. They're actually 11-1 straight up and 10-2 ATS with off back-to-back losses as a favorite. But the first time they were in that situation last year, they lost and failed to cover. And since then, they've gone 11-0 straight up and 10-1 against the spread. And Doug makes good points because we've discussed this on several occasions, folks. You got to look at team trends recently and put more emphasis on roster turnover or lack thereof, more continuity, and also the coaching staff. Have they been there throughout this course of a winning or losing team trend? And we know from year to year, we're always seeing teams that are at the bottom of the league the year before making a surprising run to be the 4th or 5th seed and make the playoffs. And we also see teams that have had success over the last year or two. All of a sudden, all you have to do is look at Dallas, Phoenix, teams that are hovering around 500 right now. Right, Doug? I mean, you can make a strong case, and I know I can, that they're they have to be the 2 most disappointing teams at this juncture in the NBA, if not one of the top 5.
Right. No question about that. I mean, Phoenix, a lot has to do with injuries, and they're starting to get some guys back and they're starting to play better. Dallas really didn't replace Brunson. Yeah. And so with that lack, that their bench has been weaker and they've just been awful on the road. I mean, they've been really bad, And another thing about Memphis, I think I saw Memphis was, I flipped it on literally before I went to bed. Memphis was up like 8 or 9 in the 4th quarter at Golden State and ended up losing that game. Yeah. I mean, if that's not motivation, for you to not end a road trip on a bad note, I don't know what is.
Yeah. I mean, and the team trend would back that up, that they've been a resilient ball club after a couple losses. And so we'll see. I mean, and going back to Dallas, I believe they're 17-9 at home, and they're like 8-17 on the road. Yeah, and even worse against the spread. So, yeah, there you go. All right, folks, it's always a pleasure. I'm glad you could join us today. I'll be back tomorrow morning. I will be with Jesse Shule and Sean Higgs. We're going to have a NFL Conference Championship game roundtable betting discussion. And then I'll be back later in the afternoon with Sean Higgs. We'll be doing two Saturday college basketball free picks. And Doug will be back with us on Monday, as always. So until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, folks, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. Hit that notification bell, and don't forget to give us a like. Take care and God bless, folks.